All right, question 7 says, consider the quadratic function g of x is equal to x squared minus 5x plus 7. Find expressions for each quantity below. Simplify your answers completely. All right, so saw a few questions like this in the linear functions review, except now we're working with a quadratic function. And so for part A, we're asked to evaluate g of a. Well, if g of x is x squared minus 5x plus 7, g of a then is simply a squared minus 5a plus 7. Or in other words, just replacing x with a, and that's it. All right. How about b, g of 0? Well, here we're just going to set x to 0 in the rule for g. So I'm going to have a 0 here and here. And what g does to its input, well, it squares it and then subtracts 5 times that input, and then it adds 7 to the result. And I'm going to get a 0 from here and here, so I'm just going to be left with the 7. Okay. For c, g of 4x, well, here, okay, we're replacing the input x with 4x. Okay, so on this note, when you see a function rule like this, g of x is x squared minus 5x plus 7, okay, more generally, okay, we can say that g of anything is equal to that anything squared minus 5 times that anything plus 7. So in particular, if I want to plug in 4x, okay, I'll put 4x here and here. What the rule for g does is it squares that input and then it subtracts 5 times that input and then adds 7 to the result. Okay, so now I can go ahead and clean this up a little bit. 4x quantity squared, well, the 4 will get squared as well as the x, so this is 16x squared. And then here, I'm going to get a minus 20x, and then I'm adding 7. And so there we go. All right, d, g of 3 plus h. Okay, so now we're inputting 3 plus h. Okay, so just like we did in C, I'm going to put 3 plus h here and here. And so what g does to the input is, well, first squares and then subtracts 5 times that input and then adds 7. Okay, and you can see here the parentheses are crucial because when I go here and square, okay, I'm squaring this entire quantity, 3 plus h, okay, not just the 3 or just the h. And likewise here, the 5 here is multiplying this entire quantity, okay, so I have to be really careful when it comes to parentheses. All right, so now let's go ahead and multiply out the 3 plus h quantity squared. So this is 3 plus h times itself. So multiplying that out by distributing, I'm going to get 3 times 3 is 9 plus 3h, and then h times 3 is another 3h, and then I'm going to get an h squared. And then here we can go ahead and distribute this negative 5, and so that's going to give us minus 15, and then minus 5h, and then we still have this plus 7 out here. Okay, so then let's go ahead and combine, and I have an h squared. Then for the h terms, well, I have 3h and 3h is 6h, and then I'm subtracting 5h, so that just gives us a plus h. And then for the constant terms, I have 9 minus 15, so that's a negative 6 plus 7, that's a plus 1. All right, great. And then for E, I have the quantity g of 3 plus h minus g of 3, and then that's all divided by h. All right. Well, one thing we can point out is that g of 3 plus h is what we just computed in part D. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is replace g of 3 plus h with this expression, the h squared plus h plus 1. All right, and now how about g of 3? Well, g of 3 I can find by just plugging in 3 for x into the rule for g. So let's do that down here. There's a little calculation on the side. So this is 3 squared minus 5 times 3, and then plus 7. So this is 9 minus 15 plus 7, and this is a negative 6 plus 7 is a positive 1. And so I'll put the 1 here, and I am subtracting the g of 3. So I'm going to have, again, upstairs, g of 3 plus h. That's h squared plus h plus 1. That just comes from the result in part D. And then we're subtracting from that g of 3, which we calculated down here, which is 1. And then that's all divided by h. All right, so we're getting somewhere. Notice here the 1's drop out, which is nice. And so we're left with h squared plus h, all divided by h. And now I can simplify this by factoring the numerator. We can pull an h out. So we get h times the quantity h plus 1. That's all divided by h. And so then to finish, let's go ahead and divide out this common factor of h. And so when all is said and done, we wind up with h plus 1. All right, that is going to do it. Thank you.